Hey everybody, this is the Marine. With wintertime upon us, most people are done backpacking and hiking, and they have hung up those packs for the year. They're anticipating and waiting for spring to come, not realizing that wintertime is a great time to be out and about. For me, it's special because it's the absent or the void of light, color, and sound, especially the void of mosquitoes. And it's sadly the void or absence of people, where people might find this favorable. But I see people are starting to venture out in this winter wonderland, and I believe in a few years it's going to become very popular when people start to figure it out. The reason why most people won't venture out in this winter wonderland is because they don't have the right gear. And one of the pieces of gear is having a pack large enough to carry all those extra layers and extra gear. But the problem is with that pack load, it can put a lot of stress on your back, legs, and shoulders. Now the answer to this problem is taking that heavy pack and all that gear and putting it in a sled. And the difference between a sled and a Pulk, a sled you'll attach rope to it to a harness that you drag behind you, and that's good for the frozen lakes and open tundra. Now a Pulk will have poles that attach to you so you can maneuver around trees on the trails, and I recommend that you get a Pulk. But the problem is they can be very expensive. Now in this episode, I'd like to share with you a Pulk that I built and tested last winter. And one of those trips it got down to 38 below zero, which is negative 38 Celsius. And this Pulk performed beautifully. And the best part is, when I was building this Pulk, I was trying to keep it around 50 American dollars. Now the most important part of the system is the sled. You don't want any sled, you want it to be heavy duty, well made. And I know a lot of people like to use those otter sled, and they'll drag nicely over the hard crust on the snow or ice. But because they're short and stubby and wide in front, when the snow is fluffy and deep, they drag behind you and it can be a real pain to pull. I recommend getting a sled that's on a narrow side but very long. And these will slide really nice behind you no matter what the conditions are. Now the sled I used to build the Pulk is from a company called Emsco, and you can find them on Amazon, but they're around $50. I found this one at a local hardware store called Fleet Farm, and I paid $27, and I was hoping to find it cheaper. I probably could have waited for a sale. So look around and find the best price for these. Now the hardware and the poles you can find at any local hardware store to build this Pulk. The hardware for the Pulk: you will need 2 U-bolts, and you'll want to get extra washers and lock washers for all the hardware. You'll also need 4 carabiners to connect the sled to the poles, and the other 2 to connect the poles to the harness. I recommend that you use a 4-inch, 10-centimeter mending plate to put underneath the sled for greater strength. The mending plate that I use has holes staggered. Then clamp it down under a piece of wood. Use a 1/4-inch drill bit to enlarge the holes so that the U-bolts will fit in the angle. You can either leave it at 4-inch, 10-centimeter, or cut it in half because you only need 2 of the holes on the mending plate. I decided to just cut off 1/4 of the plate. If you decide to cut the mending plate, make sure you file the sharp edges. Then flip the sled upside down and put the mending plate on the upper side as far as front as you can while lying flat against the sled. Then mark 2 holes with a marker. Remove the plate and use a small drill bit to drill out the marks. Flip the sled upright and put in a larger drill bit. In this case, it's a 1/4-inch drill bit to enlarge the holes so that the bolts will fit through. Take the U-bolt and first put on the lock washers against the bolts, then the washers. Next, put on the plate that comes with it and feed the 2 bolts through the holes. Flip the sled upside down with the U-bolts in. First put on the mending plate, then the washers, and over that the lock washers. Take the 2 bolts and screw on to hand tighten. Then take a wrench and tighten as tight as you can. Do the same to the other side. Good. Okay, so now it is time to put on the straps. The ones that we are using are the Husky luggage straps from Home Depot. The straps that we are using are 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters that are 8 feet or 243 centimeters in length. You feed the straps through the holes on the other side of the sled. One half of the straps on the lower side and the other on the upper. Then they'll crisscross over the sled and snap together. Now that we're done with the sled, now it's time to work on these poles that's going to be pulling that sled. You'll need 2 1/2-inch or 1.2 centimeter PVC pipes, 4 end caps, and some PVC cement. For the hardware, you will want 4 1/4-inch Eyebolts and 8 lock washers and 8 regular washers. Take one of the PVC pipes, measure and mark at 6 feet or 182 centimeters. Then cut them to length. Use the first pole to measure and mark the second pole. Then cut the second pole to length. Put one of the end caps in the vise. Use an awl or a nail to mark an indentation so the drill bit will not slip. Start with the smallest bit, then work your way up with larger bits to the size of the hole you will need. Now when all the ends have been drilled out, now it's time to assemble the hardware. Insert the eye bolt through the top. Flip upside down and insert a washer, then a lock washer, and then finally the bolt. Then take a deep socket and tighten it as tight as possible. After all the 4 ends are done, take a rag or a paper towel and wipe off all the loose particles on the end of the poles. Put the PVC cement on the ends while spinning the pole. Insert the cap on the end as far as it will go. Then take it and push it tightly against the floor. Then do the same for the other 3 ends. I like to add electrical tape on the four ends for more durability. And last, take a strip of Velcro strapping, about 8 to 12 inches, 20 to 30 centimeters, and wrap it around the middle of the poles. This will secure and cross the poles so you can steer the sled. Now the last thing you're going to need is some type of a harness to pull that sled behind you. This is from a tree stand for deer hunting, and I know people have used backpacks and other things, so I'm going to leave that up to you to be creative, to come up with something to pull your Pulk. To set up your new Pulk, you just snap the poles with the carabiners attached to the sled. Then snap the poles to the carabiners that are attached to the harness. Then you are ready to go. This system is simple but very efficient. Well, I hope you found this episode to be helpful and insightful, and stay tuned for more episodes coming how to use these to their full potential. And if you have any questions or comments, please write them down below. I'd love to hear from you. This is the Marine. Thank you for watching, and God bless.